Airports are full of people rushing somewhere, but sometimes the world moves too fast for those who can't keep up. An elderly woman took a hesitant step, asking a simple question, and suddenly a police officer shoved her to the ground and kicked her aside like she didn't matter. The crowd froze. Phones stayed hidden. Silence filled the terminal. All except one man, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, passing through, saw it all. He didn't need fame or strength to know what was happening. He just knew it was wrong. Inside the terminal, people continued moving as if nothing had happened. Rolling suitcases rattled. Announcements crackled over the speakers. But for the officer, the moment felt complete. He believed the act would go unnoticed, unchallenged. The elderly woman lay on the tile, stunned, her purse slipping from her hands. Pain radiated through her side and ankle. But more than that, there was fear, the quiet kind that comes when you realize no one around you will help. The officer straightened his uniform, eyes scanning the crowd, expecting obedience, expecting silence. He had authority, or so he thought. And then, from the other side of the concourse, a figure stopped. Tall, calm, unassuming, carrying nothing but a sense of presence. The man didn't hesitate. He saw the shove. He saw the fall. He saw the crowd freeze, paralyzed by the weight of watching authority act without accountability. He walked toward her, not in anger, not in spectacle, but with the quiet certainty of someone who knew the difference between right and wrong. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice firm but gentle. She looked up, trembling, unsure how to respond. She didn't understand why anyone would step in, why someone would care enough to stop and notice. "I'm Fine, I think," she whispered, wincing. He crouched beside her, steadying her without touching in a way that would intimidate. "We're going to get help," he said. The crowd stirred, emboldened by his presence. Phones came out, cameras raised. Not for fame, not for content, but for proof. Proof that what had happened couldn't be hidden. The officer turned toward the doors. "Step back. This is an official matter," he barked, his voice cracking with authority and panic. "This isn't about authority," the man said. "It's about what's right." For the first time, the veil protecting the officer began to crumble. The silence that had shielded him, that had allowed the act to feel invisible, was gone. Exposure arrived quietly, one witness at a time. Airport security appeared. Supervisors followed. Medical staff approached. Every step the officer took to maintain control only made the truth more visible. The woman was helped to a safe place. Her hands still shook, but her fear was now tempered with relief. Someone had noticed. Someone had acted. The man stepped back, watching as the system he didn't command began to respond. He didn't need to fight or shout. He simply stood as a reminder. When cruelty meets observation, consequences follow. Not always in the way people expect. Not always with sirens or shouting or immediate punishment. Sometimes consequences arrive quietly, like a ripple that slowly turns the tide. The officer stood frozen, realizing that his badge, his uniform, his assumed authority, all of it could not erase what had just happened. Every phone recording, every whispered comment, every stunned witness became a mirror reflecting his actions back at him. Outside, the woman clutched her purse, her knees weak, her chest heaving. She wasn't hurt only in body, she was hurt in spirit. But now she saw something she hadn't believed possible. Someone had cared. Someone had intervened. Someone had refused to let her suffering pass unnoticed. The man who stepped in, silent until now, just another traveler among hundreds, waited until medical staff approached, until her safety was assured. Then he turned to face the officer. "You can't hide behind a badge," he said quietly, but every word carried weight. "You don't get to decide who deserves respect or who deserves help." The crowd, now emboldened, began to murmur. Phones were raised. Statements were made. Security arrived, not because the man demanded it, but because the truth had forced its way into the open. The officer's confidence, built on years of unquestioned authority, crumbled. His act, once hidden in plain sight, could no longer be ignored. Exposure, he realized, is relentless. It doesn't need violence. It doesn't even need judgment. It only needs witnesses. And witnesses had appeared. The The woman was helped to a bench. Medical staff checked her over. She looked up at the man who had intervened. Their eyes met, and she whispered a simple, quiet thank you. "I thought no one cared," she said. "I saw," he replied. And that's enough to start change. For the officer, the lesson had come too late. The crowd's eyes, the recordings, the murmurs of accountability, they followed him. Everywhere he went, the memory of being watched, of being exposed, haunted him. Authority without conscience is fragile. The ripple spread. Social media lit up with eyewitness accounts. Videos circulated. Questions were asked. Investigations began. Within days, the truth could no longer be denied. Sometimes the world punishes cruelty directly. Sometimes it punishes it indirectly, through exposure, shame, and accountability. But the result is always the same. Actions have consequences. And when someone refuses to look away, even the most confident perpetrator finds themselves cornered. The woman would recover physically. Her fear would linger for a moment, but her spirit, strengthened by witness and intervention, would not break. The man, who could have passed silently, had changed the course of the day. He didn't need to fight. He didn't need to raise his voice. He simply refused to ignore what was wrong. And that, in the end, was enough. The terminal buzzed again, the noise returning as if nothing had happened. But now, everything had changed. People whispered to each other, their eyes flicking toward the officer, toward the woman, toward the man who had refused to stand by. The officer retreated to the corner, his posture rigid but hollow. Every step he took felt heavier than the last. Authority, he realized, was not what kept people silent. Fear kept people silent. And fear, when broken by courage, leaves nothing to hold on to. The crowd, once frozen by hesitation, began to move. A few stepped closer to check on the woman. Others opened their phones and recorded what they saw. No one spoke loudly, but their presence alone was a statement. Witnesses multiplied like ripples in water, each one amplifying the exposure of a single moment of cruelty. Outside, the woman sat on a bench, her hands trembling. Pain throbbed in her side and her ankle, but more than that, she felt a shift, a recognition that she was not invisible, that someone had cared enough to intervene. The man who had stepped forward stayed near, quietly watching, ensuring that she was safe. He didn't seek praise. He didn't expect acknowledgement. His intervention wasn't about heroism. It was about truth, about the undeniable fact that cruelty, when observed, cannot stand unchallenged. The officer's realization grew sharper with every passing moment. He understood that his actions had consequences that were already unfolding. Every witness, every recording, every whispered retelling was a mark of accountability he could not erase. Authority, he now knew, was a fragile illusion when it was not paired with conscience. Medical staff approached the woman and helped her to her feet. Someone offered her water. Someone else stayed close, just in case she needed support. The terminal, once a space of silent observation, had become a stage for justice, subtle, slow, unstoppable. The ripple effect spread beyond the terminal walls. Witnesses would recount the story. Videos would circulate. Questions would be asked. Investigations would begin. The officer, who had thought himself untouchable, now faced the unrelenting power of exposure. The man who had intervened eventually walked away. He did not linger for accolades. He did not want recognition, but he had changed the course of the day, and in doing so, he had reminded everyone present of a simple truth. Courage does not always roar. Sometimes it acts quietly, firmly, decisively. And the lesson lingered long after he disappeared into the crowd. Cruelty, once seen, cannot hide. Authority, once misused, cannot escape scrutiny. And silence, once broken, can change everything. Because when someone refuses to look away, when someone acts, when someone witnesses, the world shifts. Justice, subtle but certain, begins to move. It starts quietly. A whisper here, a recording there, a glance shared between strangers who had once looked away but now feel the weight of responsibility pressing on them. The officer notices it first, the way people's eyes linger on him, the low murmur of conversations that seem to carry only one meaning. We saw what you did. Inside the terminal, travelers begin to pause. Rolling luggage slows. Voices soften. The rhythm of motion that once drowned out wrongdoing now seems to hesitate, as if the very air has shifted. Even the automatic doors, sliding open and closed, feel slower, weighed down by the presence of accountability. Outside, the woman struggles to rise. Pain runs sharp through her ankle and side, but she finds support in the hands of strangers, people who had previously walked past, who now refuse to turn away. She feels for the first time since the shove that someone truly sees her. Not just her body, but her humanity. The man who stepped forward remains nearby, calm, unassuming. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't threaten. He simply stands in the space between cruelty and justice, a quiet reminder that someone is watching. Someone will act, and someone will refuse to ignore the wrong. Presence alone is enough to begin to shift. The officer adjusts his uniform, trying to regain composure. He had believed the badge would protect him, that authority could insulate him from scrutiny. But exposure does not wait. It arrives slowly, deliberately, and its weight grows with every witness, every whispered conversation, every phone recording quietly capturing the truth. The ripple spreads. People who were frozen moments ago begin to murmur to one another. Did you see that? He kicked her. Someone finally helped her. Conversation becomes action. Observation becomes accountability. The crowd moves subtly, some stepping closer to check on her, others keeping distance, but recording, others simply watching with eyes wide open. Even the smallest gestures carry power. A hand offered, a shoulder steadied, a voice saying, "Are you okay?" These acts, simple and quiet, build into a wave of consequence that cannot be ignored. Cruelty, once hidden behind uniforms and silence, begins to erode. The woman is finally helped to a safer place, surrounded by witnesses whose eyes carry the unspoken understanding. Wrongdoing does not vanish when ignored. The officer stands apart, every instinct straining to reclaim control, yet feeling it slip further with each passing moment. Authority alone is no longer enough. And the man who had acted, the quiet, unassuming figure who refused to look away, does not linger for praise. He watches for a moment, ensuring safety, then fades into the crowd, leaving behind a simple truth. Courage does not need an audience. Courage needs only the right moment, the right choice, and the willingness to act. The terminal returns to its usual rhythm, the noise of announcements and rolling luggage filling the air. Yet the memory of the incident, of silence broken, of truth revealed, lingers. It reminds everyone present that observation matters, that action matters, and that exposure is a form of justice all its own. The officer, for the first time, understands. His confidence falters. Authority cannot shield him from witnesses, from truth, from consequence. Exposure has begun, and there is no turning back. Because justice, once set in motion, even quietly, subtly, cannot be stopped.